welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are happy that you are able to take some time out of your day to be with us. Welcome to our June virtual user groups. Today's topic, or June's theme, is all about data science and machine learning. So we've got some great material lined up for you today. We've got a great panelist, presenters, and a lot of great content. So we will go ahead and dive right in. As a reminder, the session is being recorded. So you will have access to this recording after the meeting is over within a day or so. It will also be posted to ibi.com under the resource section, and it will also be posted to our new YouTube channel. So you'll have several areas of access to gain for this recording. Also, if you have any questions for our presenters during their time while they're presenting, please submit those to the Q&A. We will be monitoring that throughout the time that we are online. Aiden and Krishma will be taking questions out loud. We'll take them live. We also have Angie on the line who will be assisting with questions, as well as Joanne Gretzinger. So we have lots of folks ready to answer your questions. Don't be shy. Please submit those throughout your time with us today. All right, let me go ahead and share a couple of resources with you guys. So again, as I said, today is all about data science and machine learning. Our presenters today are Aiden Ellsworth, our solutions engineer, and Karishma Kodgay is our senior associate product manager. So you will be hearing from them here just shortly, as well as myself. I know a lot of you guys already on the line, so I'm just here to kind of kick us off. In case you still have not heard, IBI is back. We are a business unit under our parent company, Cloud Software Group. So everything about IBI that you once knew, all of our products, all of our solutions, all of our support, all of that is back, to help our organizations thrive and give the best for your data and analytics at scale. So if you want to know a little bit more about what this means, or kind of, how IBI does work into Cloud Software Group, we're happy to have a meeting with you guys to go over this, or have your account executive kind of explain a little bit more to you, if you need to get into like more of the nitty gritty of it. But yes, we are back as a brand, which that does include our full scale of marketing and support and product. So if you want to know a little bit more, we're happy to discuss that on another call with you guys. But with that, we also have our ibi.com website is back. So this is where all of your IBI needs, this is where this is located. We no longer will be posting or adding stuff to tibco.com. So please do not go out to tibco.com to look for anything IBI related. It will all now be on ibi.com. This is where you'll find all of our products and solutions, all of our data sheets, our customer stories, any resources that are available to you guys. So this would be all of your on-demand user groups, all of the recorded Focus Fridays, all of the recorded webinars that we've done in the past have all been moved over to ibi.com. As well as upcoming events. So any future user groups, any future Focus Fridays, any future webinars, conferences, things like that. All of that will be advertised and promoted on ibi.com under the events section. So if you do go out to TIBCO and you're looking for an IBI event, you will not find it. So please be sure to be checking ibi.com. You also can still access support. This is at the bottom of our page. There is a link. It takes you to your IBI support site. Where you guys can still submit your tickets and get your help and support that you need from your IBI support cases. And then what's still coming? We are evolving the website. There's a lot to still add. We want to make this bold and big and beautiful for you guys. So we're still adding additional product documentation. We do have education and training coming. I know this was a huge ask from a lot of customers, and we heard you loud and clear. We are working to improve and update a lot of our training. This will include videos. This will include, how-to documentation, getting started. We're working on the different levels of where you are with your journey with IBI. So if you're a beginner to an expert, so that training is coming your way. I promise you guys it is coming. And then we also will have a link to the community out here. So we'll have easy access to the TIBCO community. And yes, I did still say TIBCO community. because we still are on TIBCO community, but you do have your own IBI portal, and I'll talk to you about that here in just a second. As I mentioned, the events section, this is where all your upcoming events will be posted. I do apologize, this is an old screenshot, but this is kind of what it looks like to let you guys know. So any webinars that are coming up, the Focus Fridays, any user groups that are coming up will all be posted here. So if you're looking for something or want to attend something, be sure to check out the events section. So as I mentioned, the community, yes, we are still on the TIBCO community for now. You know, hopefully in the future, we'll be able to branch off and maybe create a My IBI like we had at one point. But for right now, we are still linked to TIBCO community, but we do have our own IBI portal within the community. So on this homepage, you'll be able to see that WebFOCUS portal. I believe that now says IBI. That takes you into your IBI world in the community. And so this space really is, you know, a place for you guys to share knowledge and support one another and making the best out of the IBI products and the services. Super simple to join. If you were a member of My IBI, you can register by using your old login from that site. If you were not a member of My IBI, it's a simple, you know, just register, put in your information, and then you'll be, you know, guided into the community. So if you have any questions or you run into any issues with joining community, please reach out to me, let me know. We've rebranded a lot of stuff in there. I know a lot of stuff said TIBCO WebFOCUS, TIBCO this, TIBCO that. We've gone in there and rebranded a lot to bring back the IBI brand. So we're excited for you to be a part of kind of a new launch of the IBI portion of the community. We do have your, you do have your WebFOCUS section in there. This is a place again for you guys to really gain some knowledge and engage with each other and share that with other community members. We have, the questions in the post, kind of similar to, what we had at My IBI and Focal Point. So that kind of feature is available in the community. So if you haven't been able to check that out or didn't know that that was there, it is available for you guys. So be sure to check out that portion. It's under the discussion section. And see what your fellow community members are posting about. We also have a couple of private groups in there if you're interested in joining. We do have a private IBI user group where this is basically all of your user group community members kind of have joined. I post a lot of upcoming user groups that are coming for you guys to register or remind you about. We will host some discussions and kind of post some surveys in there. It's just another little, private group for you guys to interact with your fellow community members. And then the Walters and Mark have created a Focus Friday group. So if you guys are interested in joining their group, that is all about Focus Friday and the focus language in their group. They also post their recordings and their presentations in there from their Friday webinars. So that will be another place that you guys can access their material if you're interested. Getting social with us. I know a lot of you guys already follow and subscribe to our social channels, and we really appreciate that. But if you haven't, we'd love to have you a part of it. We have our LinkedIn group, our Twitter, and we have a new YouTube channel. I know a lot of you are already, again, subscribed and following LinkedIn and Twitter, but I do want to stress the new YouTube channel. A lot of you might have followed the old IBI channel. We're no longer using or posting to that one. This is a new channel. So when you receive this presentation, these icons are linkable. Just click that link and be sure to subscribe and follow the new YouTube, because as I mentioned, that is where we'll be posting a lot of the webinars as well as a lot of the training videos that we're creating. Those will also be posted out there. So we want you guys to make sure you're having access to the right channel. The Tech Refresh program, if you are not on WebFOCUS 9 yet, and you want to be, and you're wondering how easy is it, I'm here to tell you it's pretty dang easy. It's effective, it's fast, it's pain-free, and if you guys are, interested in going about this process, Dan Ortolani's team is heading up this program, and they would be more than happy to sit down and discuss with you what all this takes. Again, it's a 3-stage process. You can also get a head start on reading about it on ibi.com at WebFOCUS Technology Refresh Program. Also on the evaluation form at the end of the meeting, if you are interested in this, you can just make a comment on there and we'll get Dan's team in touch with you guys. Definitely want to get you guys upgraded onto 9 so that you can experience all the greatest and latest features that we have and more that are coming. So be sure to check out, what it takes to get upgraded. And then last but not least, we do have, a little bit of training out there right now. It's still on TIBCO Academy. Again, I know I've said this several times. We are working on new training available for you guys, and then all of that will be moved to IBI. There's some data sheets and stuff out there that are around WebFOCUS, kind of foundations and operations and stuff. So you can go out there. It's self-paced. It's e-learning courses and tutorials. But there are a few things out there still available until we have the new training set up. All right, guys, that was what I had for you. At the end of the meeting, I'm going to send out a link for the evaluation form. If you wouldn't mind, please filling that out. We love your feedback. It helps us keep these things going and make them the best that they can be for y'all. So on that note, I'm going to turn it over to Karishma, and we will get started with some data science and machine learning.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. I'm Karishma Khatge. I'm the Senior Associate Product Manager with WebFOCUS, and I work on the DSML feature set for WebFOCUS. I'd like Aiden to have a quick introduction, and then we can begin.
Hello, everybody. Aiden Ellesmere. I'm an account technology strategist out of Toronto. I've been with IBI since early 2020s, and I've been working closely on WebFOCUS's DSML capabilities since then. So I really had the pleasure to see it grow from its initial beta to a really powerful and comprehensive set of tools that I'm super excited to delve into with you all today.
Thank you, Aiden. All right. So when we talk about WebFOCUS and data science and machine learning, it's all about the data-driven world that it has become today. There has been exponential growth in data. The complexity in data actually necessitates that these advanced techniques be used to analyze and derive those actionable insights from the data. So in order to understand data science and machine learning, let's just go through the 5 W's of the DSML needs in WebFOCUS. So to start with, who are those different people involved in this entire process? We've tried to identify some key roles that exist in the ecosystem, such as data scientists. So data scientists are people who have expertise in statistics and mathematics. They have that domain knowledge to extract meaningful insights from the data. And they tend to work with large and complex data sets. Then we have machine learning experts. These are professionals who have special knowledge and expertise in machine learning algorithms. They understand the mathematical principles underlying these ML functions, the techniques, and they apply this to build those machine learning models for various applications. Then we have business analysts. These are the professionals who actually bridge the gap between the business objectives and a solution for it. Like, how do they analyze? How do you assess an organization's process? Or how do you identify opportunities for improvement in the data? What things do you need to change to improve the efficiency and profitability of an organization? So business analysts have these skills in data science and problem solving, which actually help organizations to make informed decisions on the data. Then we have a data engineer now. The data engineer will actually design and develop the infrastructure needed to store or to analyze these large volumes of data. They focus on mainly the technical aspects of data management, ensuring efficiency, security of the data, reliable flow of data throughout the organization system or throughout the data analysis process that goes on. Then we have BI administrators, or you can say IT professionals. They take care of configuration and maintaining of the BI tool. So with respect to WebFOCUS, these are the admins who will play an important role in ensuring the smooth operation and configuration of WebFOCUS, which is needed for that organization's needs. And they could work closely with business analysts, data scientists, and other stakeholders to actually use the tool to its best possible effectiveness. And these people also kind of work closely with BI developers. So BI developers are the people who have the expertise in data modeling. So they have the knowledge and the experience in developing reports and dashboards. So they provide these effective BI solutions for data sets. And then we have decision makers. So decision makers are the executives and managers in the organization. These people actually use these reports and dashboards to see the data-driven insights that have been generated and take informed decisions for their organizations. So these are the different personas we've identified that play a crucial role in the entire feature set of data science and machine learning. And I would like to pause here and ask Shay to send out a poll question in here. We would like you guys to identify if any of these roles exist in your organization, and you can mark more than one options in here if you find that yes, these roles do exist in our organization. Okay. Moving on to what is data science, extracting meaning from the data. Whereas machine learning is more about building methods that will utilize that data to basically create some predictions or take some informed decisions based on how we can improve the data, right? So this is how machine learning and data science fits into a picture together. Machine learning is more of like a subset of data science. It uses algorithms to train on historical data, and based on that model that gets generated out of training on the historical data, that model can then be run on the present data that you have or the current incoming data that you have, which can generate new outcomes or output values that we get are actually predictions that how the data is going to progress in the future. So if you just take an example, consider manufacturing companies. So they can use data science capabilities to create a forecast of product demand. And with the help of machine learning techniques, they can actually optimize their supply chain. They can ensure that the orders that they're delivering are not, they're not over ordering or they're not under ordering. So in that case, a forecast of predictions based on their order patterns, based on the historical data, plays an important role. So that's how data science and machine learning helps organizations like manufacturing agencies. For example, we'll take a look at what different industries data science and ML fits into. This is just an example to go with. Moving on, the benefits or the why of how DSML can help you. It gives you an it's the innovation. It gives them competitive advantage over the organizations. It helps you explore new possibilities, discover hidden insights or hidden patterns in your data. It helps with fraud detections, with anomalies or trend analysis. You can define areas that are potential risks for your organization, take informed decisions based on that. It helps with efficiency and automation. Feature engineering is one such aspect wherein uh, you can actually identify the parameters in your organization that impact your performance or that impact the growth of the business, and then train the models based on that, and also automate repetitive tasks that's going to improve your efficiency. Predictive analysis, because machine learning help you forecast future trends on your data set. It helps you get analysis on, say, for example, customer behavior. So based on the buying patterns or based on the purchase patterns of the customer, based on different parameters like the region, the festivities around, or the time in the day. There are many such factors which can contribute to such customer behavior. But if you have an insight into it, you can actually forecast and predict what your next goal should be, or how you can actually define a strategy to capture that target. So all that information you can achieve only if you have these DSML or machine learning capabilities enabled on your data set and you're getting those relevant insights on your data. The different industries, not limited to the ones that we are seeing here, but just a few examples that we can touch base on with respect to data science and machine learning. So for example, healthcare, it will help you identify different disease patterns across different patient data, across different geographical regions, and you can also add different parameters to it to streamline on those disease patterns. Take an example of finance. It helps you detect frauds. It helps you detect market trends, or it helps you optimize your investment strategies. So there are different such industries where machine learning and data science capabilities are useful. Now, when and how does this technique of data science and machine learning get applied? So you can actually leverage it in various ways. You can leverage it during the pre-processing and cleaning of data to ensure that your data is reliable, that your data quality is good, to ensure that your insights that you're getting are more accurate. You can perform exploratory analysis, which is understanding patterns or understanding correlations in your data. You can actually do feature engineering, which is selecting important features in your raw data that's going to contribute to the final outcome of the insights that you get. Predictive modeling is where you actually use the machine learning functions to train on your historical data, and then you make predictions based on the model generated. And finally, the visualization piece of it, where you can use interactive visualization tools that WebFOCUS provides to actually communicate these findings with your key stakeholders. And how do we achieve all of this in WebFOCUS? We've seen the 5 Ws of data science and machine learning. And how we achieve this in WebFOCUS is that we have a set of comprehensive tools in WebFOCUS. Some of those I've listed down here, which is instant insights. Like, it's just a button click on your data and it gives you a list of insights based on different parameters, which you can then use to create dashboards, charts, and graphs, or visually communicate it to your stakeholders. We have the machine learning space where you can actually train and run models. And we also have machine learning explainability, wherein you'll get an explanation of the predicted value on your data. We also have natural language query as a feature, wherein you can just type in a question in natural language on your selected data source and get an insight as a response. It is as good as you're talking to your data, ask a question that you want, and you'll get an insight as a response. And collaboration and sharing, where you can generate reports, dashboards out of the insights that you have identified and share it with your business analysts, share it with your decision makers. You can share it with your colleagues, and you can just use it for communicating it with your team and so on. So we'll dive deep into the details of how you can access each of these features. And before that, I would like to hand over to Aiden to actually give a quick overview on how we can get started with these DSML functionalities in WebFOCUS. Aiden, over to you.
Thank you so much, Krishma. So I know a lot of you have been active in our WebFOCUS community for a while, so you may have heard myself or another solutions engineer present some of these data science capabilities before. Krishma, again, has a great presentation for you all after my piece on all these features, diving a bit deeper, some great new capabilities coming soon. But what I wanted to focus on in this first sort of portion of the presentation is arguably the most important questions, which is, how do I get started with this? How does a business analyst like myself make use of these tools? And how really can I immediately add value to my organization, beyond a general understanding of predictive analytics, natural language, data storytelling, concepts like these. So one question at a time. I'll share my screen here. I have a few slides just to walk through here. How do I install these tools? How do I get started? Good news, you're currently on WebFOCUS 9 or newer. You're just a few steps away from having access to all these services. What this diagram here illustrates is that all these features are bundled together into a single component. All I need to do to have access to each of these features is install what's called DSML services. That's from eDelivery. I can go through that in just a few simple steps. First, I need to run some included binaries on a supported Linux environment. What those will do is automatically generate all the underlying libraries, a Python installation, some components that really power all of this functionality that's shown here, really behind the scenes. And then under the hood, the WebFOCUS reporting server essentially makes a web services call to this component to run ML functions, to run natural language query, every other tool. So once I select just a port to communicate through, I'm nearly done. Everything else is done actually from the binaries, from the scripts. So I don't need to manually configure much of it at all. And if you are running on Container Edition, just to put this out here, the process is even more streamlined. I can basically just quickly create and populate a Docker container to run these services, then which my WebFOCUS reporting server can call within the existing Docker and Kubernetes framework. So I've got my DSML services set up. It's really as simple as that. Run some scripts on a supported environment, and then plug my WebFOCUS reporting server into that component. But what do I actually need to configure on the WebFOCUS end to ensure it can communicate with this sort of data science backend? I could actually show you this live. It's so simple. Essentially, I just need a single line in my configuration to specify PyServe. It's a Python server. Again, that was set up with the binaries in our DSML components. And then the host name is basically whatever I specified when I set up the service. So within the server workspaces, configurations, I do not want to add a new one, double click there. Edit serve CFG, you can see line 7 specifies a PyServe URL and then a host name. I apologize, the text is a little bit small, but that's the only thing I need to do on the WebFOCUS side to basically have it be able to communicate with these web services. I specify that host name. In my example, it's DSML common. Whatever you specify in the setup, that's what I plug in there as a PyServe URL. And I'm basically ready to go with all of these different components. They'll appear for me and I can get started with ML functions, with natural language query. And again, we'll dive into what all those actually mean and what they can do for you in a little bit here. And if you have any questions as well, I just want to put this out on the setup process. Feel free to post them in the chat, of course. Alternatively, if you would, just like a helping hand, please reach out to your account team or to me personally. I'd be more than happy to hop on a quick call with each of you to sort of walk through this installation. But believe me, it is an easy setup. Just hop back to my last little slide here. We've answered the question of how do I get access to these tools? And this is really addressing what, as a business analyst, I get for completing this, right? What additional functionality do I get access to once I've taken these steps to set up this component? But what you'll find actually is much more than the core, what we call ML functions. That's what this diagram is really depicting. That's the ability to train and run models in a data flow. But you'll actually find beyond that AI-driven functionality really permeated throughout the tool. In a whole bunch of different areas. When you enter Designer, you'll see that the Insights tab is a new tab on the left. That'll automatically generate exploratory information about, correlations, patterns, trends over time, outliers. That's really aimed to help guide your initial analysis on the fly as you're working in Designer and really inform, how you build out whatever operational insights you're trying to create. When you want to dive a little bit deeper, ask further questions about the data, you'll find that, like Karishma mentions, it's able to interpret plain English sentences or natural language and convert those into standard queries against your data. When you merge data sets in a flow, you'll notice that WebFOCUS is able to identify columns, metadata with similar names using fuzzy matching to really aid in combining similar but not perfectly identical or perfectly cleansed metadata. And again, Karishma will go into more detail on each of these components, but the point I wanted to make and get across is that there's no single tool you'll get access to, but really enhanced functionality as a layer on top of and across the entire WebFOCUS hub. And again, that will all be at your fingertips the moment you really flick the switch on and set this up. And now again, Karishma will go into more detail on each of these pieces of functionality individually, but I also wanted to give a quick primer on how easy it is to get started specifically with ML functions. Again, that's the model training capability in WebFOCUS. And then once I've completed that install, we were just discussing how easy it is to get started with this component. So I'm going to enter the data flow view on one of my master files. This is just a quick example of bank customers, account holders, some demographic information, some information about their account specifically. All these features are behind really a single click. You can see on the left here, this train models tab within the data flow view. That's what I just opened. That's the same interface many of you are probably already using to extract information from data sources, merge, join, modify, enhance data sets. And that really ties in with the core tenet of WebFOCUS ML functions. That's this functionality. They're abstracted as operators in the exact same manner as a join function, the exact same manner as, for example, the SQL select here. So you can work with these models, train them, test them, save them in a similar format to what you're already used to working with in data flow. So if you're familiar with how data flow works, you already have all the knowledge required to really get started with these tools. And another important point that, again, I keep saying this, but Karishma will dive deeper into, As of 9.2, WebFOCUS has really embraced the field of model explainability as well, right? To intuitively demonstrate the impact each variable has on a model's predictions, right? This is really critical when a model's making decisions that directly affect people, directly affect business outcomes. It's often a requirement as well that the model have accountability, that the model be able to explain how it came up with these predictions, what predictors it considered, what the weight of those predictors were, right? Which one impacted its prediction the most compared to another one. So all that information will be available to explore once you've trained a model using this tool. And the question I guess posed now is what sorts of questions, what sort of problems can you tackle if you were to install these data science capabilities and really get started with, again, this tool specifically today? Well, we've built these models in a way to really maximize our coverage of the most common business intelligence, predictive analytics use cases. So whatever you're thinking of right now, if you are thinking of a specific use case that's top of mind for your organization, chances are WebFOCUS can answer it. And then most importantly, put that answer directly into a dashboard, into a report, whatever you were already doing with whatever you created in the data flow. So I'm going to give you all this 3-minute example using this bank customer data set. But first, I suppose we should do a quick primer on what each of these models or categories of models do, what sort of problems or questions that they answer. The first one here is classification. That's really for categorical predictions. For example, in this case, we're going to show churn prediction. Is the customer at risk of churn, or are they not, right? Are they at risk of churning from our product? Are they safe? Do we need to look at them more deeply? Can we safely ignore them, or should we be pursuing them with additional outreach, with additional deals, whatever? As long as I have a data set of churn customers, I can train this model on that data set and then run it against new customers. Maybe as I get new customers, maybe on a sort of regular monthly cadence to get an overview of all my existing customers. Whatever that is, once I've trained this model, I can run it against my new data to really identify this churn risk. Regression, that's similar to classification, but for numeric measures, right? So think of predicting the percentage likelihood a customer will churn, for example, or accept an offer, the chance a loan will default, any numeric prediction. These are just, your sort of top of mind basic use cases that span across many industries. But for example, for the public sector, if anybody's here from the public sector, I work with customers on infrastructure monitoring, traffic analysis, even some forest fire predictions, actually. So the sky's the limit on these use cases, really. If it's a measure I'm looking to predict that's numeric, regression is the way to go. Clustering, that's really splitting my data. I'll just run with an example for customers into separate groups based off of the features of my data set, of course, but also really the latent characteristics that might not be apparent to a human looking at the data set, right? Customer segmentation, white space analysis. These are sort of your archetypical examples of where clustering is useful for business intelligence. Last two are pretty self-explanatory. Anomaly detection, right? That's finding outliers and assigning an anomaly score to each data point. Think fraud detection is a big one. Preventative maintenance is another. Really operational use cases where I'm looking to find something anomalous, whether it's a transaction, whether it's a machine, and then act on that accordingly, either on the aggregate view in an operational dashboard, or maybe with an alert in sort of near real time. And then lastly, time series forecasting, right? That's predicting a measure into the future. Think demand forecasting is a big one. Dynamic pricing applications, even anything where I'm looking to take a variable, project it into the future to understand its general trend, the seasonality of that variable. That would all fall under this time series forecasting. So again, I quickly explained the data set. It's a sort of account holders at this bank. It has some, aggregate account information, some demographic information. Just to quickly show you how this workflow sort of runs, I'll grab the classification model. What it's showing me here is the target. I need to specify the target. That's the variable I want to predict. It's automatically detected every binary categorical variable. So categorical variable with two options in my data set. In this case, it's just the attrition flag. So are they okay, or are they at risk of attrition, of churn? So that's what it's defaulted to as my target for this model. But of course, if I had other measures with similar properties, I could change that here. And then this predictors drop down here. This is really every variable in my data set that I want my model to consider. It starts off with them all selected. I'll leave that as is. An important point to note about this functionality here is oftentimes when I am looking at more complex models like neural networks, I really need to be particular about what I give the model. I need to do a lot of vetting out of what features are important before I feed it into a model for training. This is not the case with these models. These are all very lightweight and flexible. So if I'm not sure what I want to include from a model to make its predictions on, I can safely include everything. The model will sort out what's important, what's not. And again, I'll be able to see that afterwards with explainability, which variables ended up being important for that prediction. So I'll click apply. I'm going to give the flow a run. We're actually almost done. Just needs to run its training session here. Under the hood, it's actually training a few different models and then really comparing their accuracy, automatically selecting the best one for me. If I do want to see the other models, how they performed, I'm free to swap between them. It's just, by default, it'll pick the one that performed the best. And that's sort of what I was hinting at when I said that these models are very flexible. If there is some property of my data that makes a certain model not perform well, an easy example is one of the underlying models is random forest, and that does really poorly on high cardinality data is what it's called, essentially data with a whole bunch of columns. If I feed it that kind of data, the random forest will do poorly. That's okay. There's other models there that will perform better, and that's what this operator will select when I go to run it. So a little bit technical there, but I don't need to know these details. I just need to know that when this model finishes training, like it did here, it'll automatically select the best one for me based off of how it performed empirically on this specific data set. So we can see we achieved in our best two models here at the bottom 92% accuracy. If we can just quickly check, you can see this is just the sample training set and how that model made these predictions on that sample. So you can see it's getting most of them right. You can see we've got one there wrong. It predicted it was okay. It was actually at risk, but for the most part, it's doing very, very well. This is just one segment of the explainability, but within, just as a quick overview, within our post-training interface, we can see some feature importances from this model specifically, right? So we can see the total transaction count, the total transaction amount, how it changed over the last quarter. These are all the most important variables for this model's prediction. But again, with the new explainability features, I can dive into that deeper. I can ask questions like, well, if I change the total transaction amount, would that affect how this customer is labeled? Would that suddenly make them no longer at risk of churn, or all of a sudden make them at risk of churn? So we can ask even more sophisticated, complex questions with the 9.2 explainability. Okay, so all I need to do once this is complete is save this model. It'll be saved as a master file. So the same format as your regular data sets you're importing from some database connection, what you're used to building, dashboards and reports off of, that's all abstracted for you, right? So once I've made this save, I'm going to go back into my reporting server. It's gathered a whole bunch of visualization information if I do want to build some sort of report off of it. But the important part here is this is the name of the model I just saved. It's saved as a master file. It's abstracted. I can interact with it in the same way as I would, again, a regular historical data set. And to actually run it against new data, I'll just show that quickly as well. Here's a different data set. I go to run models, and you can see here 0622, that's the model we just trained. I just drag that in, and then I'll write, for example, to a new target and give that a run. And we can actually see it will append that prediction just show that real quickly here, attrition flag predicted to that data set, right? And I suppose another important part here is all the existing power of a data flow extends to ML functions. So I've created this model. I've created this simple flow where I'm just going to read in some new data, write it to, let's say, the same target and refresh it. Anything I could do with data flow, I can do with this as well. I could schedule this to run every morning. I could have this send an alert downstream. Any of the existing power of data flow, I can harness for these models as well. And I just have a couple quick examples to give you a better picture of maybe what this model would look like at the very, very end state as an operational dashboard. Here's a quick example from a few weeks ago, actually a conversation I had with a customer looking to implement demand forecasting across warehouse and distribution centers. So in this case specifically, it's a time series forecasting model. It was built on real open source data and 30, maybe 45 minutes. Again, it's a relatively simple dashboard just using the preset theme. But once we had the data, it only took less than an hour to basically bring that data from its raw state to a operational dashboard with a predictive component, right? An underlying model that can make this sort of enhancement to our operational analysis. So we can see, if I'm a warehouse manager, I can select a specific warehouse. We'll do Nashville, for example. I have these two little widgets showing me my estimated demand for today, how that demand is expected to change over the next week. And then you can see here in the green on the right, that's our future forecasted prediction. This data was all of 2022. So in this case, it's predicting into January of 2023. But of course, if I have more recent data, that would be going into the future. And we can see, the general upward trend that's been predicted. But more interestingly as well is there's a weekly seasonality, right? As of this warehouse, probably experiences higher demands off of the weekend during the business hours, right? So that's been captured in this model as well. You can see the sort of repeatable upward and down of that weekly seasonality. And then if I do want to get more complex in that quick dashboard, the sky's really the limit. I mean, let's say we're looking at, in this example, detecting fraudulent transactions, really understanding how our business responds to this threat. Well, here's a dashboard looking at aggregate statistics on fraudulent transactions. You can see down here, where geographically are they coming from? Up here would be how it's trending over time. And the best part is this model, like I sort of hinted at before, is run in a repeatable, self-contained data flow, right? So if I want to update this dashboard, let's say each morning with my daily trajectories, my daily operational overview, all I need to do is use the existing power of data flows to schedule this to run each morning, right? And then under the hood, this model is being run against this new data set, pending a prediction, and that's just like another field in my data set, right? I'm just visualizing it as if it was another field that had already been in my initial import of my database. And just some closing remarks as well. Every time I ask a customer, are you looking at predictive analytics? The answer is always either yes or, not yet, we're not quite ready. Something along those lines, right? I've never once had a customer, regardless of their industry, really just say no to that question, right? It doesn't matter what industry you're in. Everybody's looking to enhance their operational intelligence, their dashboards with a predictive component. And the truth is, you're already working with WebFOCUS. You're ready to get started with DSML. Again, if you haven't worked in data flows before, it's a super easy tool to learn. So once you know that, you'll have access not only to the DSML components, but everything else you can do with data flows. And it's all there at your fingertips. So that was my quick primer on what's possible with WebFOCUS data science. I want you to really think about the top of mind predictive use cases for your business. And if you are comfortable, I want you to post them in the chat as we continue this presentation. I'll come back at the end sort of to discuss every use case you post. Don't be shy. There's no stupid use cases. They're all great. And we can talk a little bit about what model maps to that use case, what's relevant to to that prediction, we can have a quick discussion really on how these tools would map to your use cases. So if you're comfortable, I would love it if you post in the Q&A while we continue this presentation any top of mind use cases for your organization, so we can have a quick discussion on how that maps to the tool and how you would get started sort of pursuing that. And with that, I'll hand it back over to Karishma.
Thanks, Aiden. Aiden, can we pause for a minute and check out the Q&As? There are a few questions in there.
Absolutely. So Mohammed asks, might have missed, do we require a separate license to turn on this feature? Nope, not at all. Again, it is a separate install, like I sort of went over at the start here, but there is no separate licensing, no additional charge to get started with this or any of these features. So if you're working on WebFOCUS 9.0 or later, it's just a matter of turning on that other component and plugging that into WebFOCUS, and you'll see all this additional capability appear. And then he also says we're mostly dealing with text data. Do we have a feature in the train model to embed and run the classification models? So embed and run the classification models. If you are working with text data, it's in a format that WebFOCUS can use, then it's also in a format that these models can use, if that makes any sense. So the pre-processing itself that is potentially required to run these models can be done within the data flow, right? These aren't super involved or super black box sort of industry specific models. So they don't require a whole bunch of pre-processing to get a good result out of. So if you do have some pre-processing that needs to be done to raw text data, for example, that's absolutely something that could be handled in the data flow and then, automated as well, right? So each time I feed that in, have some automated routine to pre-process that, feed it into the training model, save that model, run it against new data. That can all be automated in a data flow. Then last question from Peter is, can we see a documentation on these AI features? Absolutely, we'll include that in our follow-up. Both documentation on the installation, on the features themselves, and I know Shay mentioned that we're sort of revamping our training, so we're looking to have a full complete course for the DSML features as well. But in the meantime, there is some great sort of quick start, getting started guides with ML functions specifically that will be included in our follow-up.
All right. Okay. So moving on, let's get into the details of some of the DSML features. So let's get into the details of the features we have under DSML. To start with, we'll look into NLQ, natural language queries. So with the NLQ feature, you can actually ask questions on your data set in the natural language. You can specify exact dates, you can specify a date range or even time periods, such as a quarter or the past 2 quarters. Or the past years. So you can mention dates, say 31st of March 2021 to 1st of April 2023, and so on. And based on these indicators, the question that you ask in natural language, the system will be able to process an insight and get you that insight as a response. We have some examples of what different types of questions that you can ask on your data, which is like, what is the sales revenue by region for the last quarter? Or what was the revenue growth rate for the past 5 years? Or show me the sales by product categories in Europe for the past year. So you can specify exact categories, you can specify locations, you can specify a duration or any other attributes that are relevant to your data, but you can frame the question in just a natural language and you can get an insight as a response. I have a recording of a quick demo of how you can use NLQ in WebFOCUS. So in the hub area, you have the explore data option. The first step here would be to select a data source. So from your workspaces, you can select a data source of interest and you can just start typing in a question. Now, as you type, the relevant column names or the relevant field names show up as suggestions. So these field suggestions help you actually frame your question in more easier terms. And if, for example, you have entered an incorrect query, or the query does not have any relevant data or information in your data set, it will give you suggestions on what are the different questions that you can ask on your data. And then you can correct your question, ask again, and modify your questions, and it will give you a response the way you see it here. You can also save this insight in workspaces, or you can run it in a new window to present it to someone. Or when you try to save it to workspaces, you can just browse your workspaces, find a location you want to save it in, and you can later also open this in Designer, change it to different visualization formats, and use it as a part of reports and dashboards. We also have the Explore data as a container in Designer. That's where you can use the NLQ capabilities in Designer as well. So you can add an Explore data container, and the first step again here would be to configure a data source. So once you have the data source configured, when you run this page, you can actually use NLQ in live mode. So yeah, there you go. So when you see this report, you have a data source configured. So now you can just start asking a question on your data set, very similar to how we just accessed it in the hub area. Moving on to instant insights. So instant insights are actually automated generation of meaningful and actionable information on large data sets without requiring any manual analysis or interpretation on the data. So you can just select your data source, and the system will start generating insights on your data source and give you a list of insights. The different insights will be based on single column, pairs of column correlations, and also time series forecasting. Again, it can be accessed from the hub area through the Explore data portal, very similar to how we access the NLQ. The first step here again is to select a data source. Once you have your data source selected, you move on to the Get Insights tab, where you'll see a message saying Analyzing Data for Insights. And then you can scroll through a list of different insights that get generated on your data. Now, these insights you see here are actually based on pairs of columns, which depends on the correlations. So there's a positive correlation, and then there is a negative correlation that depends here. So positive correlation means that these two variables both move in the same direction. So if there's an increase in one variable, the other variable also will tend to increase. And a negative correlation means like they move in opposite directions. So if there's an increase in one variable, there's a decrease in another variable. So based on these different insights are generated. And you can, again, once you get a list of insights that are generated, you can save that insight in the workspaces, later open it in Designer and change the visualization type and use it as a part of pages as well. Instant insights are also accessible in the Designer area. So when you're in Designer, in the left sidebar, you see an option for insights. And while the analysis for insights is going on, you can so this analysis is asynchronous, so you can go ahead, perform the other actions in Designer, and you'll get notified once your insights are generated. Now, the list of insights that you see in this left column bar, you can actually explore through the list of insights, and it has an option which says Add to Canvas. So once you find an insight which is relevant and that you would like to add to your page, you can just copy the content to the canvas and it gets added as a container in your page. You can later use the different visualization chart types that we have to change the visualization of the selected insight. Moving on to metadata classification. So metadata classification, the main use case is when you have multiple data sources and you want to integrate data or take decisions based on your data, but you want to integrate information from different sources. For example, there are different systems. There's a CRM system, there's a patient data information, I have my financial records, and I want to integrate all this data and then identify certain things. So in these cases, when there is a classification label associated with your column, it becomes more easy to actually recognize relevant information and combine it. So different class labels are assigned for the column names. We'll see an example of how this is done. So when you try to upload your data, so for example, here I'm uploading a data. Once the data is uploaded, I actually see a button in here which says classify. Now, when you click on classify, it will show you the list of column names and the different classification labels that have been associated with these column names. Now, the system will actually define these classification labels for you, but you can also change these labels. You can define certain columns which you think do not classify. And if the system is not able to clearly identify the label that you see in here, you can also type in and enter a new classification label. Like for example, in here, the applicant income or the co-applicant income, I want to tag these both as the income classification label. So I can just type into this box and it will take it up as a new classification label for these columns. Once you're done, you can actually just click on apply changes and those classification changes get applied on your data. Okay. Moving on to ML functions, we got a quick introduction from Eden on ML functions, the different types of ML functions that we have. We have binary classification in place, which is mainly used for predicting one of the two possible outcomes based on the input data. For just a simple example of this could be to predict whether an email is a spam email or a non-spam email. It provides us with different algorithms like logistic regression. We have the k nearest neighbors, random forest, and extreme gradient boosting. We have the regression as the other ML function in here, which is a supervised learning algorithm, and it will help you predict on a continuous variable output. And it also takes into consideration more than one input variables. So taking an example of predicting the price for a house, there are different factors involved in it. So all these factors are your different input variables, like the size of the house, number of bedrooms, the location. There can be many other factors like the geographical aspects of the house, different facilities or amenities that you provide in the house. And based on all these factors, you actually end up predicting the price of that house. Then we have clustering, which is an unsupervised form of learning algorithm, and it actually groups similar data points. So this helps in use cases where you want to identify similarities in your data set, such as demographics or the purchase behavior and so on. Anomaly detection will help you identify unusual or abnormal data points in your data set. Example would be to identify fraud transactions or unusual or suspicious transactions on your data set. And time series forecasting helps you actually predict future values which are time dependent based on some historical values. Like for example, to predict the temperature of the next day or the next week based on some historical temperature readings. So under ML functions, you can train models. We saw a quick demo of how you can train models given by Eden. So I'll just move on through the slides. You can also compare the different algorithms that you get under the ML functions and save a model after you're done training the model. Once you save the model, we'll see how you can run the model and get to the explainability. So all the saved models, once you go to the run model tab in here in reporting server, you'll see all the list of models that you have saved, and you can just select a model that you want to run on the defined data set. Once you run the model, you get the predicted values on that data set. And if you want to get to the explainability of this, you can actually click on a particular value and that takes you to the explainability view. Now, explainability actually gives you the details or the explanation of why you're getting that predicted value. And the graph that you see here on the left are the different input parameters and how these input parameters actually contributed in defining those predicted values. So for example, total transaction time was the most important input parameter which affects your predicted value, and then so on. So for example, credit limit has a lesser importance in actually predicting or in affecting the predicted value. So this is how you can make use of the explainability tool in order to understand the predictions that you get from your machine learning models. So overall, these are the functionalities that we provide in WebFOCUS under DSML. And I would like to share another poll question in here, which is, which of these features would you all like to try, or the one that you're most likely to try? And like Aiden said, if you have any use cases that you want to share where you think any of these feature functionalities will be useful to you, please drop it in the Q&A box, and we'll be more than happy to discuss that use case and see how these features can be useful in achieving that.
In the meantime, we have another question here, which is a great question. How do we decide the capacity of the reporting server? I assume in reference to, something that's traditionally quite computationally intensive, like training models. So first point here is the DSML services will actually be using the resources of the environment they're installed on, and not necessarily entirely the reporting server's resources itself. The recommended configuration for the environment that these DSML services are installed on is 16 gigabytes of RAM, minimum a 4-core processor, and the actual install itself takes about I think a little bit less than 100 gigabytes of free space. So to answer that question, those are the minimum recommended settings. And when you do train a model, again, WebFOCUS is essentially making just sort of a web services call. So a lot of the resource burden is on the environment that the DSML services container is installed on itself. Although the reporting server does need to do work on its end as well. But again, answering your question from one other light, you shouldn't need to make any changes to the resources allocated or the configuration of your reporting server itself, just what needs to be allocated to the additional server. So no changes should be needed to be made to your reporting server.
Okay. Moving on, I have some future announcements. So one such announcement that we're planning under DSML is the WebFOCUS IQ plugin in the hub area. So like we saw, DSML actually fits in different areas of WebFOCUS. It's available in the hub, it's available in the designer and reporting server. And DSML is more of like a layer which enhances your BI capabilities. So keeping that in mind, we're introducing a WebFOCUS IQ plugin in the hub area, which will get you like a centralized access to all the DSML capabilities in WebFOCUS. So we have a visionary mock-up of how WebFOCUS IQ will look like in the hub area. So in the hub, you'll see an icon in here which will indicate IQ functionality, and it covers like 4 different tabs. So under the Discover tab, you can discover different data stories, which will indicate the trends or anomalies in your data set. And you can also configure your preferred data sources or set a default data source so that whenever you enter the IQ plugin, you have a data source selected and you don't have to select it again. You can just go ahead and perform your DSML actions on that selected data set. Then we have Explore data, which will house NLQ functionality and the Instant Insights functionality. The Predict data focuses more on machine learning, the capabilities to train, run models, get to the explainability. And My Boards is the sharing and the collaboration tool. So under Boards, you can club all the results or the insights that you have generated, or the data stories that are relevant to you. It's more of like a collection of all the output that you get from these data science and machine learning capabilities and the different features you have used in here, and use it as a tool to collaborate with your team and share those insights with your team. So this is like an enhancement, an item on our roadmap, and just wanted to share it with you all.
Amazing, super exciting, Krishma. We have one more question here. Can we use external Python scripts to train the models? Absolutely. So I didn't mention this in the presentation here, but WebFOCUS integrates natively with Python and R. And actually the models trained in ML functions under the hood are Python models. They're shown as master files. They are master files within WebFOCUS's sort of sphere. But I can grab those, bring them out of WebFOCUS, and under the hood, they are serialized Python models that I can work with, tweak on my own, export to a different environment, whatever, but also either in conjunction with the models I train in ML functions or independently, I can work with Python scripts to basically generate whatever custom Python models I want to create. Same with R.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, guys. Any additional final questions for our panelists today? We have quite a bit of time left, so if you do have some questions, please don't be shy, submit them. Aiden and Krishma are happy to answer those for you guys. In the meantime, I did throw into the chat a link to the evaluation form. So before you guys head out today, if you wouldn't mind just taking a moment, a minute or two of your time to fill that out for us. Again, your feedback is greatly appreciated so that we can continue these, improve on them, and make sure that we're bringing you guys the best content that you want to see and hear. So your feedback is always appreciated. We'll give it another minute or two and see if there's any additional questions. But Aiden and Krishma, thank you so much for presenting today and joining us. Wonderful material. You guys that was awesome. And Krishma is super excited about the upcoming WebFOCUS IQ. So I know a lot of folks will be excited to learn more about that as we get closer to rolling that out.
Another closing point I just want to make, again, if this has sort of motivated you to take a little bit of a look at the DSML services, getting started with an installation, again, if you need any sort of helping hand, please reach out to your account team, reach out to me directly. We're all here to help sort of guide you through that process if you'd like somebody just to sort of guide you along the way.
Wonderful. Thanks, Aiden. All right, guys, it doesn't look like there's any more questions coming in, so we will give you back some time throughout your day. Again, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. I know everyone is busy with lots going on in their schedule, so we appreciate the time you were able to spend with us. Again, this was recorded. You will have access to this within a day or so. Along with any of the PowerPoints that Aiden and Krishma showed, we will be able to provide those for you in the follow-up email, along with any additional links that Aiden and Krishma might have referenced or we feel are, would be of value to you. So we'll include all of that in a follow-up email. And in the meantime, you guys, I hope y'all are having a wonderful summer so far, and we will see y'all next month in July for our July theme topic. So if no more questions, we'll let you guys go, and I hope y'all have a wonderful rest of your day and a great weekend.